Welcome to the Face-to-Face Ministries podcast, the #1 resource for learning what it means to have a healed heart, connect more deeply with Jesus, and experience true and lasting transformation in your life. I am one of your hosts, Melinda Wilson.
And I'm your other host, Cathy Little. Please hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the fresh content that we're continuing to release. And while you're at it, we greatly appreciate your help in getting the word out by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving us a quick review.
You can also keep up with us by following our social media by searching face-to-faceministries.org on Facebook, and that has no spaces, no numbers, and no caps, and on Instagram at face-to-face-min, and that is all one word.
Our team also offers one-on-one ministry sessions that can be done virtually. And one of our favorite things to do is to train others to do what we do in helping others connect with Jesus. So if you want information on that, we can help you out.
Yeah, and for more information about all the resources, including what Cathy's talking about, our trainings, our events that we offer, visit face-to-faceministries.org. And while you're there, please sign up for our newsletter.
All right, let's dive into today's episode. Happy New Year, everyone. It's January 2024.
I am excited about 2024.
You don't sound excited.
No, you know what? No, I am excited. And the thing is interesting because I see a lot of people commenting like, oh, thank God 2023 is in the rearview mirror and looking forward to 2024. And I am very much looking forward to 2024. We're in it.
Yes.
But for me, just my perspective is that it seems like a lot of people had a very difficult 2023. And I think that that's the case with any given year. I don't think one year is worse than others, although there are some that have some marker moments in history.
Well,
but
I had 2 surgeries on my wrist last year.
So it's all perspective.
Yeah.
Because for me, I just think, wow, I got to go back to the UK after being gone for 7 years, dash away 39 and 40 in the United Kingdom, and finally in England, driving across the country, going to national parks, doing trainings, hiring a new business strategist.
Yes.
She is changing everything. And I only feel thanks. And I'm not to discount anyone's difficult 2023, because of course there are challenges and pain points within a year. It's not like 1 year every single day is bliss.
Which is why it's important to learn an Immanuel lifestyle where you're able to see Jesus in the everyday ordinary, whether it's really good or difficult. And learning to see him in the middle of things that are hard and building that friendship connection with him, which is what he's longed for with us all along.
Well, and I think too, I know there were difficult, painful moments, of course, in 2023. That's just life. But for me, I remember more of the positive joy moments. And I hope that for all of us, that even if this last year was marked by very difficult things, that you're able to have his perspective, grace to see even those little glimmers of light and hope.
Absolutely. We've already kicked off 2024 in a beautiful way. We got to join with 50 to 60 other trained Immanuel Prayer ministers at the InterVarsity Staff conference down in Orlando just last week. And it was really wonderful to be with other people that are in our community, our tribe, people that are very passionate about facilitating and helping other people connect with Jesus, and spending time with Dr. Carl, had great conversations and learned more. You know, we don't ever stop learning. I learned so much more from talking to him and challenging him on some things that I had seen. And I'm like, I don't know if that's right. And it was really cool how we had an opportunity to just to talk shop with our peers. It was so good. And so many people had incredible breakthrough. It was beautiful.
Yeah, there were just over 1,000 staff members. This is a once every 4-year staff conference. Last year was Urbana, but because of COVID, everything was kind of shoved off, kind of like the Olympics. But there were 500 approximately staff ministered to. So that was about half of the attendees.
Yes.
If we had 100 volunteers, we could have ministered to all of them. But can you even believe that there were almost half of the people that came to this conference had one-on-one ministry sessions, got to connect with the living interactive presence of Jesus.
And all of us actually as volunteers, we came together and had the privilege of being part of this. But because they had reserved the rooms for prayer ministry and they were just going to sit empty outside of those prayer ministry hours, we ended up kind of having an Immanuel Approach Facilitators Conference. And different people were sharing things that were on their hearts. And one of the things that was really fun, which is kind of a fun way to start off our podcast year, is one of the guys that was there, Nate Harkness. He's actually the Director of International Ministries at the World Discipleship Association in Fayetteville, Georgia. And he had asked us just the day as we were driving down if we would share at one of those blocks. And as we had this conversation, we realized there were actually key questions he wanted to ask us. And so we ended up having a bit of an interview or a panel discussion type thing where he asked us some different questions.
So it's a little bit of a different podcast today. In that we were sort of interviewed in a quasi way in front of some of our peers, and it was fun. It was very spur of the moment. We didn't have any planning, and I don't mind it that way. It was fun to share some things with our peers and people that we had met before, people that we haven't met, maybe just had met online. But this is it's kind of a fun way to kick off the new year.
It is totally a fun way because we've had people say, it's great that you're interviewing all these people, but sometimes we'd like to hear from you. So here's your opportunity. But before we pull the trigger on that, we want to make sure that you guys know about our core training program. This is our year-long program. It is in full swing. Mentor pods start this week, and we are thrilled to pieces to be having a very wonderful and robust full spectrum way to train and develop healed heart healers in the Immanuel Approach. We're going to be offering enrollment 4 times a year, and we already have our first cohort engaged and they're ready to go. But you have an opportunity to sign up because we're going to start off again our process with a 5-day free Connect Others with Jesus challenge. And this is the gateway to learn more about us, to learn more about the Immanuel Approach, to experience some of the Immanuel Approach tools, and to learn how we train and develop others. So this is starting January 22nd to the 26th. It'll be from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Zoom. And there's also a private Facebook group to go along with it. It's the Connect Others with Jesus Challenge. So we would love to have you come. And this is how you sign up. You can go to ImmanuelTraining.com. That's with an I. ImmanuelTraining.com/challenge with a capital C. That's kind of important. That's going to get you in all the information, get you signed up, make sure you get information on how to access it. And we would love to have you be part of it. This is the gateway. It's totally free, risk-free, totally free. Just come and learn more about who we are, what we're doing, and how we're training, and see if it might be something that would interest you. And even if it doesn't interest you, share it with those that you know that might be interested.
Yeah, and it's really interactive in a way, not interactive with us per se, but we will be leading things that are practical, that will help people connect with Jesus and bring people into appreciation and joy. So it's not going to simply just be listening to a talking head the whole time. You're actually going to come away with, gosh, you'll just feel good, okay? Yes. You'll feel good. And last year, we launched our very first 5-day Connect Others with Jesus challenge, and we had
450 people sign up. Now, we can beat that, y'all.
Yeah, they didn't all come. We know. Listen, we realize this. We all do this. That looks so exciting. And then we know we don't go to it. We don't watch it. But to have that much hunger, it shows something that people do, A, want to help other people connect with Jesus, and B, probably want to learn how to connect with Jesus themselves.
Yes.
So if you are either in one of those two camps or you know others that do, please share this with them.
We'd love to have you join us again. ImmanuelTraining.com, IMMANUEL, ImmanuelTraining.com/challenge with a capital C. So sign up today so you get on board. So here we go. We're going to start off the first interview of us for 2024 by our friend Nate Harkness, who's an Immanuel Prayer minister that we were with last week. So we know you're going to enjoy it. It was really fun.
So we're going to record this like a podcast episode because these guys are podcasters. So we're going to record. So when we hold up the laugh sign, you have to laugh, clap. My name is Nate Harkness. I don't really have a role here, except I just stepped into kind of a communications role for this week. But I do with the discipleship ministry in Atlanta, I oversee all of our international ministries. So I work a lot in India and Africa, and I get to do discipleship, leadership development, along with a number of other things, including Immanuel. And one of the interesting things about Immanuel in other countries is, I think Mark will share, is Jesus is so much himself in every context. It's really fun to see Indians experience Jesus. One of the things I was saying to Marianne at the break was, every time I do Immanuel with an Indian, they see Jesus robed in white light. But as soon as Jesus begins to interact with them, he becomes very friendly. Sometimes he doesn't lose the white light, but he gets very casual and very friendly with them. So, so interesting, like the consistency across cultures. But one of the things on my Immanuel journey that's been so helpful to me is listening to Cathy and Melinda's podcast, face-to-face podcast. They've just brought so many good voices to the table to talk about Immanuel Approach, but beyond Immanuel too, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So I got talking with them on the way down to Orlando, and I said, can we just have a conversation together about, like, what's your origin story? What's your superhero origin? What was the moment this connected for you? But also, like, where is this community going? And what are we becoming as people as we're encountering what you call the full benefits package of the cross? And so I just want to just ask, who are you? Where did you come from? And how did you get plugged into this? Maybe we can start there.
Well, I am Wonder Woman, as you can see. Now I'm, Melinda Wilson. Now Wonder Woman, you cannot tell the difference. Linda Carter, love you, honor you. Superhero origin story. What does that mean?
I'm not holding this for you the whole time.
What is it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay.
I can hold my own mic.
Because this is an Immanuel group, I want to know, like, what was the moment that it connected for you personally? Whoa, Jesus is in the room and I can have a two-way conversation with him.
So I grew up in a very legalistic background with a very transactional God who was waiting to smack the gavel in judgment over me. And that was my upbringing, very shame-based, very well-meaning parents, but still very shame-based. And so my view of God was very warped and distorted. God began to unravel that when I was in my 30s, early 2000s. I was introduced to language for what that was. It was called shame. I was very shame-based. And I began to experience more of who I truly was to him, what my true identity was, who he was, and my absolute inability to impact or affect in any way, positively or negatively, his love and acceptance of me. That was a game changer, because when you grow up in that environment where everything's transactional and you have to prove your worth, or you feel like you're a worthless piece of whatever, but for the grace of God. So I began to realize that my identity had nothing to do with me and my behaviors. It was who he saw me to be. So that was a big deal for me, a big change for me. There was another massive layer of inner healing that happened for me when my life totally fell apart and lost my marriage, job at the church, credibility, everything. I lost everything. I can tell you that story another time. Or listen to episode 3 of our podcast. You'll get more details on that. But in that, I spent 5 days with a professional counselor in Fort Worth, Texas, who was doing inner healing. And I didn't even know I had no box for it, no language for it at all. But he was doing heart work and introducing me to Jesus in that place of pain and wounding, inviting Jesus into trauma as a child, and Jesus completely changing the entire room where the trauma had happened to me. And I can't see it the same way ever again. I had no language for it with Immanuel Approach. This was years before, but that was a game changer for me. And it set me on a trajectory of inner healing and emotional maturing and dealing with a lot of stuff that had held me back and was in the way of me really experiencing the fullness of what Jesus had for me. But that journey moved forward, and then I was invited to dream again, and then stepped back into ministry. And then God brought Melinda around, and we partnered with our very different gift mixes. If you know us at all, we're very different, but we're dynamite when we're together in a ministry setting. And that's kind of where it started.
Was there a moment in that session that you really became aware that this was real?
Oh, yeah. It was Wednesday of the week.
Yeah.
And he invited me to connect with Jesus where some abuse had happened when I was young, like 9 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, very profoundly, because I saw Jesus in the room with me, and his brokenness, his brokenheartedness. He was very broken over what was happening to me. And then I was able to ask him to completely change that for me. And Carl has said this too, that he's in all of his experience in however many 30 some odd years has never had somebody be able to go back to a painful memory the same way after Jesus is there. You can't unsee him there. And that's been true for me my whole life. Yeah. Since that moment.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Thank you. Yeah. How about you?
I don't have a Baptist background, so I don't have a day of salvation. I know that that's more of a Baptist thing, but growing up Presbyterian, it was more of the ongoing work. And I never doubted God's love. I feel like I have I'm very grateful and feel very fortunate to have always been taught that. But it was about, I was in missions when I was 15 and ministry most of my life. And I used to believe that we have to go on and have our QT, our quiet time, not the gas station over there, but have our QT for 30 minutes. And if you're distracted, God forbid, for 5 minutes of that, then you're going to have a bad day. And I really grew up believing that. And it was kind of implied in all the teachings, like, well, Satan got you today because you didn't have 30 minutes of quiet time. And that's bull. That we're on a podcast. That's a lie. That is one of the biggest lies, that if you do this, then God will do this for you.
Right.
And I think just a matter of over the years of experiencing a lot of inner healing. And I've always had a very vivid imagination. So seeing Jesus has never been a problem for me. Like, oh, I know where he is right here. Yeah. He's not with you. He's with me because he likes me better than you. No, I'm just kidding. But I love Immanuel Approach because of that. Yeah. Me being just a visual person. But I wouldn't say that there was one moment. It's been many, many moments over the years that have also formed and shaped my doctrine, my theology. Yeah. It keeps getting better and better.
Well, I just like to ask that question because there was a moment for me in my first session where I'm sitting with Jesus next to Lake Superior, and I said to my friend Vince, "Oh, it feels like I could pinch his robe. Like it feels like I could reach out and touch him." And like I'd pictured Jesus with me before, but it never felt that real and relational. And that was like, for me, that and going through the negative memory was like, whoa, this is life-changing. Like this could really do some good in the world. Like this is amazing. So I'm just curious, like, yeah, where those transition moments were for people, you know, in terms of like, wow, this is incredible. You know?
Well, one time when I was like, Jesus, why do you always show up in a robe? Like, get that, like, you know, the felt thing, like VBS or the day, whatever that used to be growing up in the 80s. What was that called?
The flannel.
Flannel board. So Jesus is this always blonde hair, blue-eyed. I'm like, okay, that's not what he looked like. And so one time years ago, I was like, Jesus, really? A robe? I'm like, what's up with that? And he's like, it's comfortable, Mel. I'm like, okay. Okay then. And that was like, okay, this is real. And he's real. And he likes wearing that. I mean, and so just being able to have conversations like that, it doesn't always have to be serious and like, what's your plan for my life? And it's like, Jesus, what do you like to do? What's your favorite bird? And just having that, I'm sure he'd give a different answer to Carl than to me, but depending on the region of the country you're in, but just having those everyday interactions, like which root beer do you like? Well, he's like, I don't really like root beer, but anyway, so just having those everyday moments, it's like, this is not just one, I'm going to have an Immanuel session. This is a lifestyle we're talking about. Kathy?
We just have to rein you in because we're limited on time.
I got to give you the mic.
Well, I just realized you have got a gin yummy on your
and
wrist.
You know what that is.
I do. That means
but for God.
But for God. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's an amazing.
This tattoo.
Oh, you have it too.
Yes. It means but for God.
Can I get one?
Yes.
There's
it's a Jinyame, very popular in the nation of Ghana. It means but for God.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are three of us that
my friend says, in other words, if God doesn't show up, we're all dead meat. So how did you go from receiving this to wanting to give it away to the world?
Short answer, we were at a women's retreat, and the lady who had invited us wanted us to share about inner healing in general. And so we shared about inner healing in general. Melinda and I are cross-trained in several different models, her more so than me. But she asked if there was a centralized resource for this information. There wasn't at the time. Bang, here we go with the podcast. We began interviewing people. Carl was our third interview in Virginia after a training. And we didn't know what we were doing very well. And so the editing for audio was really complicated for me. So I listened to this interview with you like 100 times, trying to get it right. And I learned. And Melinda had been using the Immanuel Approach in various forms at different events, Dashway weekends for women that we do and stuff like that. So we began using that more. And then we were invited to do one-on-one ministry for another organization that was sending people for inner healing as something that they prioritized in their organization. And so we were part of that group and began doing the sessions in that context. And we ended up doing hundreds of them for this group over a couple of years. So you get kind of good at it when you're practicing like that, or when you're utilizing it like that. And then we began in the mentoring track with Carl and began training. And that's really our main focus. We do sessions, but it's not our number one gig. We're actually training and developing on a larger scale now. And we hired a program designer so that we can do it well, because we were kind of shooting off buckshot rather than laser. And so now that is beginning this month, and we're going to be letting people in 4 times a year. It'll be a year-long program. And we're not just training them in the model, because you can be really good with the tools and a really emotionally immature person or a jerk on the sideline. So we would like to help you learn how to have better relational skills, maturity skills, in addition to we're providing you with 12 inner healing appointments so that you can do your own work, because you can't lead someone where you haven't been. And you want to make sure that you bring your best self when you come and sit with somebody, so that you have the capacity to sit with them and not be triggered in your own stuff or get hung up by whatever you're bumping into. So that's what we're working on now. Yeah,
that's awesome. How did you get interested in having all these conversations with people on the podcast? Because you're taking in a breadth of people, and it's so helpful to have all these voices. But I'm just curious how that started for you.
Season one was mostly inner healing leaders and founders and stuff.
Right.
And there were 61 episodes, which is not ironic because of Isaiah 61, right? But then we branched out beyond that. So Melinda, go talk about that.
Well,
and I'm curious too, like what have you learned? Like that's kind of where this conversation is going. Like, what are you learning? Because I know all of us, we want to get all the resources and, learn more.
How many lifetimes do you have? I mean, as far as like what you can learn is an infinity. We're out in the quantum realm. That's one thing that I'm extremely passionate about the last couple of years, learning. And it goes totally hand in hand with Immanuel, but I'll come back to that because everything is energy and our thoughts are energy, and it's just like so cool, but I'll come back to that. So just 4 years ago at that conference.
Yeah, and that conference.
Yeah, we were asked, can you describe all these inner healing approaches? And I had been trained, like she said, in several. And so I was like, well, do you have like 4 days? And she's like, no, you have 45 minutes. And so I'm like, this is why I talk really fast, because I know we have very short time today. And I end up talking really fast. I could be an auctioneer. But I just said, well, this is Sozo, this is RTF, this is what I know about generational, this is what I know about all these different ones. And she's like, she said, is there a centralized resource for all of these modalities? And I said, not that I'm aware of. And she said, well, you need to write a book. And that's pretty much how she said it, this little Spitfire Sherry. But that was what the open door to then start interviewing all these people. And so I have no problem asking anybody anything, because they can just say no, but they could say yes. So I just started emailing people and they said yes.
Wow.
And it was like people that like, how'd you get that interview? I said, I asked.
I just want to say that Carl actually changed his flight to accommodate a conversation with us. So if this mattered to him that much, it mattered to all of them. Like when we explained what we were doing, all of them were eager. Like, we want to be part of this. And then you had mentioned the symposium. So a book did come out of it. It's called Streams of Healing. It's available on Amazon. We've got 12 authors, key leaders in inner healing that have spoken about their models. Carl's one of those. Cool. And then we've also invited these inner healers together in person. And so what y'all don't know is that once a year they get together and love on each other in person, because relationship matters and unity matters. And if the inner healers can get unified and supporting and encouraging each other on the things we can all agree on, what amazing power and authority jumps off of that, right?
That's amazing. Yeah, and I imagine you guys are learning from each other, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing.
Oh, but the best conversations happen around a meal.
Yep.
Yeah. And, you know, I overhear and eavesdrop on Carl's conversation with like Sarah Thiessen of Splunkna, who does like muscle testing and all this stuff, and how they correlate and how they disagree and agree. And it's okay that they disagree on some things. And then John Thomas is disagreeing or agreeing with it. But it's so fascinating, and we can sit and learn from each other just with conversation. I think that's where we learn the most, breaking bread together, honestly. So I'm glad some of you are eating, because it's going more into you. But there's something about that eating together. Thank you, Marcia. Yes. So that's where we learn is let's get in conversation with people, you guys. And I think that's one thing that I've really learned over the past couple of years is I hear something, I'm like, instead of demonizing it or going, oh, that's satanic or demonic, or that's weird, or that's not what we believe, actually sitting and having a conversation with somebody instead of letting judgment rule my perception of the person, which is really fear. It's out of fear. So I'm going to make a decision out of fear or love. What will I let guide me into relational connection with somebody? And I love that Immanuel is all about relational connection, because it's not just with Jesus. It's with the person that's sitting in front of you. Mm-hmm. And when we can come, let's say you have someone coming and sitting in front of you this week that is like, well, that doesn't align with my belief. Can you put that aside and see Jesus in them? And that's really what I've been learning too. Like, we're all humans made in God's image. There's no us in them. There's no us in them. There's no like, I'm in the club and you're not because you haven't said the prayer. And so being able to see, oh my gosh, I'm seeing a different aspect of God looking at you, bro, and looking at you, Charlotte. Yeah. I see Jesus in a different way looking at you. And that's what we get to do this week. Yeah. And so I'm growing in my own perception of who God is by looking at the person in front of me, even if they are completely opposite of what my ideals are, ideologies or politics or whatever, because Jesus levels the playing field there.
He does. And that is amazing, the unifying power of the Immanuel experience. I've been with people that completely disagree with me on any number of issues, but when we start talking about Jesus, it's like, oh, I don't even care. Like, I just want to be with you. I'm so glad to, connect with you. So
I was ministering to a lady who's a ministry leader on a larger scale. And she's very much about the word of God, the Bible. Yes. And what about the living word of God? And so did like 3 Immanuel sessions with her, and she had a connection with Jesus at a point that was before she knew him. And she was shocked. She's a ministry leader and was shocked that Jesus would show up in a memory where she had not yet come into relational awareness of him. Wow. She had not walked into what had already been true of her in that moment. And so she was like, she was puzzled. Why is he here? I didn't know him when this happened. I'm like, really? What do you know?
Yeah, I've led someone to the Lord doing that. Like, oh, Jesus was there when you were 5 before you were Catholic. That's amazing,
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's amazing. So one of the things I want to talk to you about, both of you, especially you, because you say you're a mystic, I'm sure you are too, is this whole just thing of a mystical connection and union with God. maybe we could call it like one-on-one Immanuel or solo Immanuel. But what was always interesting to me and what was so life-changing for me was not that I could do a session with Vince, but that I could do a session myself, that I could walk in the woods and connect with Jesus and learn to practice his presence, and getting that neural rut for practicing his presence, I was able to apply the concept of being relational with God to the grocery store and to my marriage and to raising my kids. And so I'm just wondering, how has the Immanuel lifestyle kind of impacted your thinking and even your theology? This whole idea of just being with God all the time and being aware of him at all times. I was telling my friend yesterday, well, I just realized I can practice God's presence while I chew. If I'm having a meal with someone, I could just chew and then feel God and then talk some more and then chew and feel God some more. It's like, oh, I never thought about that, So how's that impacted what you guys do and think?
Okay, I'm going to do this really fast because I know you're going to need time to. I briefly mentioned that my life kind of fell apart in 2009, and I started working at a coffee shop, and I was managing the kitchen, which was a very hectic thing to do during rush hour in the morning because everybody's running through to get their coffee and a bagel sandwich. But I was in the middle of learning this relationship with Jesus in a personal way. And when I would wash dishes during the lull, I experienced him next to me washing dishes in this cafe. And that has been so profound. It's been so profound to me because that is like my first experience of him as a friend with me in real time doing an ordinary task. And it's so profound, and it does grow. It does become something that you are like. We were getting ready to move to Virginia Beach in a 28-foot box truck. I didn't want to drive it. I begged God, I don't want to drive it. And I saw him sitting on the cab with his legs hanging down in front of the windshield. I'm like, that's not good enough. I want somebody else. I know you're here with me, but I want you to drive. And he said, I am. I'm in you. I'm driving it from in you. And so there is not a distance. There is not a separation. And like, I'm a worship leader. I have been for 33 years. I will not lead a song that begs Jesus to come. I will not do it. I will not do it. I did it for many years, but I'm not interested in begging him to come. I'm interested in inviting you to tune in to the fact that he's already here. That's how I'm going to lead worship. If we're going to do some opening thing, that's my invitation. It's not to him. It's to you. It's an illusion that he's not already there. It's your block. It's your unawareness that for his presence, it's already there. And so I've learned that with Immanuel. It's never an issue of Jesus wasn't there and I'm inviting him to come.
Why won't you come?
Yeah, it's not that. It's I'm in this memory and I'm inviting him to reveal himself.
Yeah.
I'm inviting him to show me and help me to perceive him because he was there, just like with the woman who had not yet prayed a prayer years ago.
Right.
She was experiencing him. So
I think as Justin Abraham said, separation is an illusion.
It's an illusion.
And thinking about, wow, it's a veil, but it's not really there. Like I'm not
it's
separated from God.
How many of you are human in this room? How many of you are created in the image of God? How many of the people on the street that you bump into every day carry that same DNA?
Amen.
There is no us and them, folks.
All the Baptists, he said.
Yeah, right. This is an opportunity for you to call the gold out in other people and to call them into awareness of the fact that they already carry God within them.
Yeah.
I think that whoever is practicing Immanuel is a mystic. And that just means we are exploring the mysteries of God. Yep. And the more that we do that, the more we realize there's never-ending, infinite possibilities in the quantum realm. And that's what I would call kingdom. I've been studying, I'm kind of segueing into that simply because it does correlate with Immanuel Approach. But I've been studying quantum science for the last couple of years. And again, it would take 40 million lifetimes because there keeps coming out all this research and the kind of technology studying quantum obviously is not what was around in 1902 with Max Planck and his quantum theory. But nowadays we're realizing more and more that there's way more than what we can see. Well, everything is vibrating. Everything is energy. This is energy. We're energy. I'm energy. Listen to our latest podcast with Steve McVeigh because it'll blow your mind if you're interested in that. But one thing that I also studied Dr. Joe Dispenza, a chiropractor, brain scientist, researcher. But every thought that we think has an energetic field to it, has energy to it, has a magnetic resonance to it. Every thought, every word has energy and frequency to it. And, the Bible is full of the power of the tongue is life and death is the power of the tongue. There's a reason behind that. God knew about the brain science and the quantum realm way before science started studying this. This is true. This is science. I'm not talking like some girl holding a crystal with a sound bowl, although that's, whatever. Anyway, it's everything is energy. Everything is frequency. So our words, our thoughts actually carry a frequency and an energy. The Heart Math Institute is also studying this. So when we're thinking about Jesus, what kind of energy are we bringing into our body? I'm attracting what I'm thinking and speaking out. And like E equals MC squared. I won't go into all of that. But Einstein was a genius too, obviously. But energy is matter. Matter is energy. And what I'm thinking about, what I'm speaking about is drawn back to me. And the reason that I feel like this is such of what I've been learning, and what there actually is Immanuel, we're sitting and thinking about Jesus. We're sitting and thinking about gratitude, which Joe Dispenza would say gratitude is the greatest state of receivership, which is why this neuroscience works. He's also a neuroscientist. It's like, so people that aren't necessarily what they would call Christian are saying the same exact thing that Carl's been saying for years, because it is brain science. It's brain science. It's the way God made our brain. But the thoughts we think and the words we speak all carry an energetic frequency. And so being very mindful of what I'm thinking, what I'm speaking out, and even like walking down the street, what am I thinking about? And being much more, that's what Immanuel Approach has helped me, at being very much more aware of the thoughts I'm thinking, staying in gratitude and appreciation. Dr. Carl, brother, thank you, because it is all about gratitude and appreciation. When we're in that state, then we're in the greatest state of receivership. That's where I'm basically, and I'm not doing it so that I can get something, but it does happen. I'm just so thankful for life today. I may be feeling horrible in my body, but thank you that I can breathe. Finding those little things. And I think for me, I was never really a pessimist, but I might have been more of a realist, I guess you could call it. Well,
that's what all pessimists say.
Yeah, okay, so maybe I was a pessimist, but now I'm like, everything is possible. There's unlimited potential. And maybe my body feels really bad today, but I can breathe.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
And just sitting and feeling that gratitude. Man, that is what it's all about. Feeling gratitude is changing people's body chemistry, their mitochondria. It really is. They've done studies on even way beyond, Dr. Carl, you've studied. Your book is 800 pages and all your essays add up to probably 10,000 pages.
At least.
But it affects us at a biological level. And staying in that state of gratitude and appreciation is changing your DNA, your molecular structure, your cells. So thank you, Dr. Carl. Thank you, Jesus, for how you've made us.
Yeah, and that was kind of my next question, too, is maybe you can answer this, too. How do you apply that quantum reality of our life in Christ?
You better keep talking.
Well, you heard Steve.
I did hear Steve. So I guess being more intentional about how we speak and what we're saying. Yeah. And knowing that there is an element of what we're putting out is what we're receiving. If I am expecting bad things to happen, they typically do. But if I'm not looking for that and I'm moving forward, like realizing that there is energy, there is an attraction, there is weight to that because of what you're putting out there. And so it's not like this glorified name it, claim it stuff. It's just realizing that there's weight to our words. There's weight to our intention. This whole split screen, slit test thing that the observation effect. Listen to the latest podcast, Steve McVeigh. Everybody write the name down. Quantum Life is the name of his book. He's got a trilogy about this really powerful stuff. But just knowing that our intention carries weight. Our intention carries weight.
Right.
So,
well, and the thought, what I'm thinking as you're talking is, it sounds like you believe that we can steward our own thoughts and intentions, and have control over our own thoughts and intentions.
Yes.
Which is probably different than how most of us grew up believing.
Right.
Which is like, you just think what you think.
Right. Right. But one thing that's really interesting that we've actually been a little bit more intentional about is that, you know how when you get in patterns of relating to people, and like when this happens, I respond this way, and there's always, you know, if you take a breath and explore an alternative way to respond, then you're giving yourself another path that's a possibility that you can choose next time. And the more you think about choosing that, you can get out of the rut you're in by allowing another option to be available to you. And so that's part of that, I would think.
Yeah.
Just giving yourself options so you don't always have to get triggered by something or always react to something a certain way. And obviously explore it. If it is triggering you, there's a reason, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We need you to share with us the things that we need to be thinking about and reading and plugging into, what's going to blow our minds, out of this conversation. Steve McFay, really awesome.
Yeah.
What else can you recommend for us?
I think, and again, this is on the podcast, but be open to learn from people that are not in the Christian world. I'm going to challenge you. And if you have a challenge with that, come and talk to me. But is God in everyone? That might be a question. Is God in everyone? And I don't want to open up a theological Pandora's box, but I'm happy to have conversation over beer, wine. Oh, that might trigger some people too. Over a meal. But I'm not trying to provoke people to be angry, but life is too short to not speak out revelation the Lord is bringing me, because it's brought me into greater freedom. And I don't want to make you angry. That's not my heart at all. But Jesus, look at him and how he spoke to some of the religious people. And that's not what I'm doing here, because I'm not calling you religious people. But my heart is to see people come from where they are now to where they can be, because I'm seeing that in my own life. Like, I think about myself even 2 years ago and go, thank you, God, that I'm on a continuum. Mm-hmm. And if I'm in the same place a year from now as I am now, then, oh my goodness. In order to change, right? Don't we all want to change? We actually have to be open to growth. And in order to grow, I have to change. And sometimes, most often, it's very uncomfortable. So learn and that's not my biggest challenge to you. Like, go find a bunch of secular books. I don't mean that, but even have your awareness to go, there is no us and them. Everybody, either everyone's made in God's image or they're not. Either we believe that or not. And so being open to go, truth is truth, no matter whose mouth it's coming from. And I've had to honestly look outside, because some of the Christian stuff has been there's so much fear, and there is no fear in love. This is what the Bible says. There is no fear in love, but perfect love, what drives out fear. And if I'm already afraid of being deceived, then I've already stepped into fear. I've already stepped into deception if I'm afraid of being deceived. So I am about freedom. I'm about transformation. And I'm so passionate to see other people walk into greater freedom and into receiving how God feels about them. All the work I've done in my own life, which is lots, I've invested a ton of money into my own healing. I mean, believe me. But it's been all worth it. Everything, even stuff I wouldn't do now, because I'm like, that's not so free. Immanuel Approach is the best, and this is a podcast, but it's why I teach it. I don't teach any other model, but there is so much freedom in just seeing and experiencing Jesus. He's just glad to be with me, no matter what is going on. Yeah. That's at the end of the day, and that's what I can share with anybody that I'm talking to, whoever's in front of me. So I don't know if I've said one thing or many things.
Well, I think it challenges a lot of our thinking to think, well, we could learn from non-Christians, but we do in science and medicine all the time, in astronomy. I'm like, why shouldn't God reveal something to Dick Schwartz or, Dan Siegel, or like somebody that doesn't necessarily share our faith, but shares our humanity and shares the image of God and understands something through revelation about how we're designed. And, I know for me, like, I've gone deep into Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication and Dan Siegel and like the parts theory. And I love knowing that when I'm reading these resources, Jesus inside of me can help me do the integration work and sort out what's him and what, I don't really agree with that, but that's okay. Because, there's some truth here, and it's in some ways it's richer for me than reading the people that have already done the integration to the Christian faith. Cause I'm like, I can sort out the pieces because Jesus is with me. But I just love that God has revealed so much truth, to humanity outside of our denomination or even our faith in general. So I think that's awesome.
The irony is that there are some things in place in the evangelical world that are relatively new, but people don't realize how new it is.
Right.
And so we're latched on to things that are maybe only a couple hundred years old and not what the early church believed. And so the chances of any of us in this room having 100% of the picture and completely accurate is zero. And it would be arrogant of us to think otherwise. But yet a lot of people in the church world do, because there's this tribal thing that I'm going to fight for the thing that I think God hates or whatever. And I'm like, God doesn't hate. I mean, there's like, he loves us. There are things that hurt him, and he feels. But if Jesus is perfect theology, which we're told he is the exact representation of the Father, then anything you see about God and his nature has to be filtered through the man Jesus Christ. Has to. And so that's why I love the Immanuel approach, is because everybody's getting to know Jesus. I get to watch Jesus move in other people's lives. I get to watch Jesus respond to people who are expecting judgment and condemnation, and he just doesn't do it, ever. Never seen him do it. Never experienced him do that.
That's amazing.
I see love. I see compassion. I see heartbreak over things that have happened to people, because he doesn't interfere with free will.
Yeah.
We get to watch Jesus. Those mirror neurons are awesome.
Yeah.
We get to learn and become more like Jesus by watching him. But the fact that none of us has the complete picture, and we need to hold loosely. And that's where that whole mystic thing comes in. I'm okay thinking that maybe I don't know it all, because it's arrogant for me to think that I do. And I need to be open and explore. If the Bible says the heavens declare the glory of God, could we not learn about him through astronomy? And the earth, geology, geography even?
Yeah.
I mean, God's way bigger than our little box for him. And I'm okay with that. I want my box to be blown open.
Yeah. Well, and even, you think about the wise men. We just finished Christmas. The wise men understood something through astrology that people among God's chosen people didn't understand.
Yep.
And so there's revelation everywhere.
Yeah. So
I want to ask you guys in the 3 minutes we have left, just because, hey guys, let's get relational with Jesus for a minute. Let's share a face with Jesus. And I'd love to just invite you to release any blessing that you feel that the Lord specifically wants to release on this group. Yeah.
I want to bless you all with the gift of uncertainty, so that you are open to receive the more that you're not even aware that you don't know. Because the box of what we don't know that we don't know, is really big, y'all. So I bless you with the gift of uncertainty and exploring with Jesus. If it upsets you or makes you tense, get with Jesus and ask him, what do you want me to know about this? What about it? Let him be your guide. Y'all know how to connect with him.
Yeah, I bless you with seeing Jesus in every single person that's sitting across from you this week, and setting that intention. Our intentions are so important. So I bless you with knowing that setting an intention has so much power and energy, and we can set that intention with Jesus. But I bless you to see Jesus in every person across from you, not coming as I've got more to give, but actually as a recipient ourselves. There's a give and take. It's reciprocal. It's the law of sowing and reaping, so that when we sit across from that person or sit across from them at a meal or when we're walking down the hallway this week and you get in conversation with someone, that you would grow in your awareness of who Jesus is as you talk to that person that has absolutely nothing in common with you in the natural, but that you would see Jesus in even more way, his infinite ways this week in every conversation, every interaction that you have this week.
Yeah, thanks guys. I'm extremely grateful just thinking, wow, Jesus is the Prince of Peace, and his peace is like a resonant frequency in the atmosphere that resonates with our thoughts and our kind intentions towards him. So I'm grateful for that, and I know we're going to have an awesome week. Can we thank Cathy and Melinda?
We knew it would be fun. We're so glad you guys hung out and listened to that, and we do wish you all a happy 2024.
And if this is still in January of 2024 that you're listening to
That's
this,
true.
you can see us at Connect Others with Jesus Challenge. And if this is like in June 2024 that you're listening to this,
there's going to be another one.
There's going to be more.
Just keep checking. That same website will be updated every time we do it.
That's right.
We're going to let people into the program 4 times a year. So if you missed it when it was January,
We'll come back around.
We'll come back around.
Thank you for listening.
All right. Blessings, y'all. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. This is a listener-supported podcast, and if you have received value in any way from our content, we would truly appreciate you to partner with us financially, and you can do that by going to our website, facetofaceministries.org/give for tax-deductible giving. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.